you're about to mix two chemicals, but you're not wearing any gloves or goggles. One wrong splash, that's a chemical on your skin. Mixing unknown chemicals without protective gear can lead to chemical burns, skin irritation, and permanent eye damage. Always wear gloves and goggles. Sniffing chemicals in a room with no ventilation and no mask. This isn't just unsafe, it's dangerous. Without ventilation, toxic vapors build up fast. You're breathing in chemicals that could damage your lungs, brain, or worse, your memory, even knock you unconscious. Always work in a well-ventilated area. Wear a mask if required. And read the chemical safety data sheet before doing anything. Slouching like a sleepy shrimp. That's a no-no. This posture may feel fine now, but over time it leads to neck pain, shoulder fatigue, and long-term spinal problems. To sit safely, keep your screen at eye level. Use a chair that supports your lower back. And keep both feet flat on the floor. And don't forget to stretch every 30 to 60 minutes. Yikes, lifting with your back curved and knees locked. That's a one-way ticket to back pain city. Improper lifting posture can strain your muscles, pull your back, or even lead to spinal injuries. To lift safely, bend your knees, keep your back straight, hold the object close to your body, and use your leg muscles. How this hierarchy of control works. Imagine trying to climb a ladder. You want to start from the bottom and work your way up, right? Well, in workplace safety, the hierarchy of controls works the same way. This system helps us decide how to best reduce or remove risks. The higher you are on the ladder, the safer and more effective the control.
Elimination will remove the hazard at the source. This will include changing the work process to stop using things like toxic chemicals, heavy objects, or sharp tools. This is the highest level of protection because no exposure can occur.
A council in Victoria found that using a scraper to remove graffiti off glass was just as effective as using a chemical and safer for their employees.
However, we use chemicals for specific reasons, so this often isn't possible. But what we could do is eliminate a worker handling activity. For example, buying pre-mixed chemicals instead of hand mixing them.
Substitution is a process of using safer alternatives to the source of the hazard. This means using a safer, less hazardous material versus the hazardous material. For example, using a plant-based printing ink versus a solvent-based ink.
With advances in paint technology, I now find I can use water-based paints for so much more than I could before. And I feel so much better for it.
We can substitute a chemical with a less hazardous one, or use a chemical in a form that reduces the chances of exposure, like using a paste instead of a powder.
Using hot water instead of cold water to help remove graffiti can reduce the amount of chemicals required.
We need to remember that substitutions can introduce new risks which need to be managed.
Engineering controls will reduce or prevent hazards from contacting you. Engineering controls may consist of modifying equipment or the workplace, using protective barriers, ventilation, and more.
We can use engineering controls, for example, bunding and ventilation systems. To make sure the controls are effective, we need to provide proper training and supervision for workers and maintain our equipment. The approaches we have just described are known as higher level controls and should always be considered first and used if possible.
Administrative controls will establish work practices that reduce the duration, frequency, or intensity of exposure to hazards. Examples may include work process training, job rotation, ensuring adequate rest breaks, limiting access to hazardous areas or machines, and adjusting line speeds.
Examples of administrative actions that can be used are limiting access to areas containing hazardous chemicals and safety signs.
It is important to develop safe work procedures or standard operating procedures for your workers and provide training that is specific for the chemicals being used. Procedures should talk through the controls to be used and developed using safety data sheets and other relevant information.
Personal protective equipment is the least effective control and protection method. PPE is worn to minimize exposure to hazards but does not eliminate the hazard completely. PPE may include gloves, safety glasses, hearing protection, hard hats, and respirators. Employers and employees must not rely on PPE alone to control hazards when other effective means can be implemented.
PPE is intended to be used to supplement other control measures and when there are no other practical alternatives, like in emergencies or managing spills. It is important to provide training in how to correctly use and wear PPE.
It is important for you to understand the importance of the hierarchies of controls. These controls can help reduce or eliminate workplace hazards and protect you.